The ultimate Fallout New Vegas Iceberg? Let's go. Upon purchasing the Fallout New Vegas Collector's Edition, one of the extra things that you received was a deck of playing cards. The deck contains 55 cards, 52 being regular playing cards with 2 jokers, one being represented by the Courier and one being represented by Benny, and also 1 Caravan rule set. And the backs of these cards are not the same throughout the entire deck. They're kind of completely random and they feature in-game locations, such as all of the casinos on the Strip, the Bison Steven, Vault 21, and the Silver Rush. And each suit is actually represented by a certain faction in the game. The spades are going to be the area around Freeside, the clubs are going to be Caesar's Legion, the hearts are going to be the NCR, and the diamonds are going to be the New Vegas Strip. And each of the cards has a character or faction or something from the game and a little quote about it, which is amazing. But what's kind of interesting is you can tell these were made very early on in the game because there are some changes that differ from the playing cards and the actual game. If we take a look at Ambassador Crocker, in the playing cards, he's a white dude, but in game, he's black. Or if we take a look at the 2 of diamonds, we can see 2 robot sex slaves instead of 1. So it seems like these were made pretty early on, and they ended up making some changes, but they already made the cards, so you can't go back and change them. But still, these cards are freaking awesome, and I'm glad I actually own them. If you're a huge fan of Fallout New Vegas, I think this is something you definitely want. New Vegas has plenty of unmarked quests. Everything from striking it rich at the casinos to giving Veronica a dress. Unmarked quests are exactly what it sounds like. Quests that are not going to give you any indication that you're actually doing it. Like one of the more popular unmarked quests where you have to collect 7 snow globes for Mr. House, you really don't get an indication on where to go or what to do. You kind of just get told, hey, if you see snow globes, pick them up. And I actually really like these unmarked quests, because usually you just kind of happen upon them. The game doesn't let you know that you're doing the quest, or really anything like that. And to me, it makes the Wasteland feel a little bit more alive, and it just gives you more interesting things to do. Before we continue with the Iceberg, I do have to shout out my beloved Patreons. We got Brian Hahn, Person, Fat Lucky Potato, Icy Storm, Giovanni Diaz, Mayall, GDI Smackdown, Ford, Ty Mulan, Henry Heiberg, Money Shot, Cyrus, One Up Gamer, and Zach White. Patreons got this video early and every other video early as well. So if you'd like to be a Patreon supporter and get that bonus, and also get a full expenses paid vacation to North Korea, make sure to check out that link down there below in the description. Back to the video. Challenges in New Vegas are exactly what they sound like. Unique challenges that you can complete to get a variety of rewards, such as XP and also sometimes special perks. Some of the more popular perks that you may tend to get more often than not is Lord Death and Abominable, which just have you getting a certain amount of kills, and with each amount of kills that you get a different rank of the perk, which will unlock you special rewards for that perk, such as just doing more damage. And the amount of challenges that are in this game are absolutely insane. There's probably at least going to be like 50 you probably have never even heard of or have never even done. But there's also some pretty simple challenges, such as just finding a vault, or just get really high while you're doing chems, or win at Caravan, or lose at Caravan. And with each DLC, they added more and more challenges. So if you thought you ran out of stuff to do in New Vegas, you probably didn't. Try to go complete every single challenge. See if it's possible. Now, you might not know this because of all the mods you end up putting on the game that this just kind of becomes irrelevant, but New Vegas does have a level cap. But with each new DLC, that eventually got raised to 50. And in the base game without any mods, you can only select 1 perk after every 2 levels, so it really makes you kind of pick and choose what you want, instead of just playing modded like majority of us do, where you get a perk every single level. If you are doing a Legion playthrough, or just being an elite spy, eventually as you progress through the Legion's quest lines, you kind of get the idea that something is not quite right with Caesar.
Oh, God damn it! Never this bad before. This. I'm going to lie down. Come back later. Tomorrow.
And after returning to the fort after the destruction of the Brotherhood of Steel, Caesar will ask you to speak with him privately in his tent, where he explains to you that something's wrong.
All right, let's state the obvious. There's something wrong with me.
And through a variety of medicine or speech checks, you can learn that this dude got a tumor, and it's not going too well for him. And there are essentially 3 ways to go about this quest. You can either 1, have a high enough medicine to perform the surgery yourself, 2, you can have Arcade Gannon do it, or 3, you can repair the auto dock. Or I guess technically 4, you can kind of just like kill Caesar, or I guess 5, just do nothing. But I think my favorite route to go about this is having low intelligence and trying to perform the surgery yourself. Classic.
Caesar is dead at your hands. This crime cannot go unpunished. No, I suppose not. You've proved that you're a friend to us many times. I apologize for my temper.
Patrolling the Mojave almost makes you wish for a nuclear winter.
This is just a line that you constantly hear while you're playing the game from the NCR, and it's essentially just become a giant meme. And if you've ever actually been trekking through Las Vegas, you will wish for a nuclear winter. It's hot as balls out there. Vault 22 is a very interesting vault. It stands out from a distance. In a barren wasteland where it looks like nothing grows, Vault 22 looks like it's just teeming with life, plant life to be more specific, and it stands out very easily among the rest of the rock and sand. But upon entering the vault, you very quickly learn that it's actually kinda deadly. Before the war, the vault was originally inhabited by scientists working on agricultural-based experiments with their end goal of sustaining the vault's entire research population with plants grown inside of the vault. But of course, due to one fungus named Bia vera mordicana. Guys, I'm a YouTuber, I'm not smart. Which of course was developed at Big Mountain, more specifically the X-22 Botanical Garden. But with the experiments using this fungus, which was originally designed for pest control, the fungus would infest itself and begin to colonize the host's body, and eventually the host would die due to failure of the body functions, while the fungal colony continued to expand through the body, and eventually the host's motor functions are fully controlled by the fungal colony, allowing it to move around and infect more and more. And as they continued to do more and more research with this fungus, it ended up spreading throughout the vault and eventually consuming it. And by 2096, the vault would fully be abandoned, with the dead eventually becoming spore carriers that were doomed to carry the fungus throughout the rest of the vault. And eventually, a party of 118 survivors that left the vault ended up making their way north into Utah, and eventually ending up in Zion Canyon, where they came across a group of refugees from Mexico. With having greater numbers, more discipline, and tactics, they ended up hitting the Mexicans' camp, killing all of the men and shooting down women and children that resisted, and the remainders would be taken to their camp. But if you know anything about Zion, there was a man named Randall Clark who happened to witness the entire thing, and over the next couple days he surveyed the area and watched very, very carefully, where he noticed that the Vault 22 survivors were walking around coughing constantly. And upon the day he decided to get into the camp, he came across a very gruesome scene. The Vault 22 dwellers had killed and eaten everyone they took from the Mexican survivors' camp, and Randall Clark would go on to kill 24 of the original 180 dwellers. The remaining fates are really unknown, but the NCR's Thomas Hildren has a very specific interest in Vault 22, and upon talking to him, he can give you a job that has you entering Vault 22, so that way you can see man-made horrors that probably best left untouched. In Shining Armor is a perk that was added with the Dead Money DLC, requiring a repair of 20 and a science of 70 to use, and the perk is supposed to give you a +5 to your damage threshold against energy weapons, while you wear any kind of metallic armor, and an additional +2 while wearing reflective helmets or eyewear. I'm not sure what that means, but you get the gist. Like, wouldn't all eyewear kind of be like reflective? Like, what specifically makes eyewear reflect? I don't know. But here's the kicker about this perk, it doesn't actually work. Its effects do absolutely nothing. And that is because when they were writing up the perk, someone done goofed. When the perk checks for the skill type of the enemy's weapon, it looks for energy instead of energy weapons. And there is no weapon skill in the game called energy, so someone messed up and just typed energy instead of energy weapons. So essentially, when you get this perk, nothing happens. Even if you have the metallic armor or the reflective eyewear, the perk only looks for energy, and there's nothing like that in the game, so essentially you get a dud perk. Not that this perk would be good even if it worked, It doesn't seem like a very good perk. NCR money in Fallout New Vegas may seem kind of worthless, or, well, at least compared to bottle caps, but at one point in time, the NCR money was actually worth a lot. Originally, it relied on the NCR's gold reserves, and in the area where NCR money was present, bottle caps had become pretty much worthless. But during the NCR Brotherhood War, the Brotherhood would constantly raid the NCR's gold supplies, thus making it so that the NCR paper money wasn't really backed by anything. And with people rushing to try to get their money out from the remaining gold reserves, the NCR had to do something. So the government would go on to abandon the gold reserve. And ever since then, people just started to lose faith in it. And of course, what would take place other than the bottle cap, which was backed by water? And during the events of Fallout New Vegas, you can find an NCR $5, $20, and $100 note. But it doesn't seem like people are too keen in using NCR money around the Mojave.
We make cement for the NCR using the limestone we dig out with dynamite and drag lines. Dirty work, but the pay's good. Wish we got paid in caps, though. Not a lot of merchants like taking NCR paper money. Nope. The NCR has been trying to switch over to using paper money, just like in the pre-war days. Trouble is that the exchange rates ain't exactly fair. For example, $100 in NCR money is valued at roughly half that in caps around here. Seems like a rotten deal for us, but work is work.
And also, interestingly enough, there was a cut $500 note that was going to appear in the endgame for Fallout New Vegas. And according to Josh Sawyer, it was intended to have either Aaron Kimball or Chief Hanlon on it in the event of the NCR victory at the dam. And I guess it's pretty safe to say that after the Fallout TV show, NCR money is pretty worthless and the bottle cap still remains supreme. Animal Friend is a perk in Fallout New Vegas that is going to require a level 10 courier with a 6 charisma and a survival of 45, and there are 2 different ranks of it. Taking the first rank of this perk causes both regular animals and mutated ones to not attack the player, and upon taking the second one causes them to assist you in combat. Well, unless it's against other animals. They won't do that. But what's interesting about the perk, and one of the reasons I just love Fallout New Vegas, is there are actually a couple different dialogue options for said perk.
The stupid girl should know by now that even the rags on her back are a privilege. Anyway, my mongrels like their new toy. Tell you what, you square off with 4 of my best dogs. No armor and no weapons except a machete. You survive, and I let you have the bear. I thought something was wrong. We usually have to pull them off any visitors to the fort. Well, that's no fun. Take the bear. I'll find them something else to chew on.
Hey, I heard about you. What can I do for you, friend? Thanks. We haven't been paired together long, but he's a smart dog. I don't know about that. Okay. Take good care of him and bring him back when you're done.
What? Why, yes, it is. I used to leave it outside his doghouse, chock full of chems, before the cybernetic modifications, of course. And no matter how chemmed the food, he would always eat it, and his tail would wag, even while You know, I'm having the most perplexing feeling squiggling through my biogel. I can't quite pin it down. Why, yes, Gabe.
Now, how many times have you seen this screen pop up and you just completely ignore it to start a regular game of Fallout? Probably a lot. But what exactly is hardcore mode? It's just a more realistic survival experience. And there are a lot of major changes, such as stim packs. Instead of healing right away, they heal over time. Radaway also heals radiation instantly, while again, on hardcore mode, it heals over time. In normal mode, Dr. Spags will fully heal your limbs, but in hardcore, they only partially heal them. In normal mode, crippled limbs can be healed with stim packs or by sleeping on a bed. In hardcore mode, only a doctor's bag, or sleeping in certain beds, or an autodoc or a hydra can heal a crippled limb. Probably one of the bigger ones, in normal mode, ammunition is weightless, but in hardcore mode, it has some weight to it. In normal, companions can't die, they can just get knocked down and become unconscious, but in hardcore mode, they can very much die. And in hardcore mode, you have to drink, eat, and have proper sleep cycles, or you will get a bunch of negative effects. So the next time you think you've done everything in Fallout, and you have never tried a hardcore run, maybe it's time to give it a shot. It's definitely a different experience. Operation Sunburst, or also known as the Battle for Helios 1, was a battle fought in October of 2276 by the NCR and the Mojave chapter of the Brotherhood of Steel. The NCR was said to have outnumbered the Brotherhood by 15 to 1, or even 20 to 1. And the Brotherhood is said to have lost half of the chapter's paladins and knights, while the NCR's casualties were unknown, but it's assumed to be relatively high. The Brotherhood at the time was being led by Father Elijah, who ordered his troops to dig in and protect the facility. Father Elijah had learned of a new technology, the Archimedes, that would surely win the war for them. And his plan was just to stall long enough until he could get it working. And in the midst of the fighting, when all hope looked lost for the Brotherhood, Father Elijah would vanish without anyone knowing why or where he went. And with that, Paladin McNamara was forced to rally the remaining forces and launch a counterattack to break through the NCR lines and retreat towards Hidden Valley. But during the retreat, the Brotherhood would activate Archimedes' security measures, which was aimed to slow them down. And those measures were still in place by the time the courier comes there and works with the insanely smart Mr. Fantastic to disarm it all. And since this battle, the NCR would be one of the controlling forces of the Mojave, while the Brotherhood was cast aside into the Hidden Valley bunker, left to their own. One thing that I just never put two and two together about was that I think almost every single side quest in Fallout New Vegas is named after a song. The quest Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which has you getting implants from Dr. Usanagi, is of course a reference to the song by Daft Punk. The quest Beyond the Beef is a play on words of Beyond the Reef, which was recorded by Bing Crosby and Elvis Presley. The unmarked quest Pistol Packing is a reference to the 1943 song by Al Dexter, Pistol Packin' Mama. The Lucky Old Sun is a reference to the 1949 song by Beasley Smith and Haven Gillespie. And I could go on and on and on. There are almost a million quests, well not literally, but there's a lot of quests that are just references to old songs. Raul Tejada is definitely one of my favorite companions in Fallout New Vegas, and it's definitely not because he's voiced by Danny Trejo. It's definitely a huge part of it, but it's not the only reason. But this is also coming out before Season 2 of the Fallout show. There also seems to be a lot of speculation that Danny Trejo's Raul may or may not make an appearance. Loader Runner is the leader of the Fiends in Vault 3, and arguably, probably one of the most mentally stable of the bunch. Being able to survive multiple assassination attempts sent by the NCR, and not only dealing with slaves that he purchases from Dermont and St. James, you can also sell him drugs as a good side hustle. You can sell him Jet, Psycho, or Buff Out for 20 caps each, or 22 if you have a high enough barter check. And he is also affected by the Wild Wasteland trait. Well, not him directly, but his two dogs are. With the Wild Wasteland trait, they are now called Donnie and Marie, which is a reference to a 1976 television series. This is a line that you can hear Veronica say after visiting the Lucky 38, and is a reference to a cut Securitron named Marilyn, who is based off the very real actress Marilyn Monroe.
What'd you think of Mr. House? I was surprised he only had the 2 robot sex slaves.
Now you probably know about the one Securitron, Jane, who is in the Lucky 38's presidential suite, and you can talk to and deliver snow globes to. That Securitron is based off the actress Jane Russell, who co-starred with Marilyn Monroe in the 1953 movie Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But the Marilyn in-game was cut, unfortunately, and it seems like this Securitron was cut pretty late because we still have the Veronica quote, And in the official playing cards on the Two of Diamonds, you see both Marilyn and Jane. And according to Josh Sawyer, the reason she was cut from the game was due to errors in her voiceover which could not be fixed in time. So instead of being able to fix it, they just said to cut it. Snow globes are an item that can be found around the Mojave Wasteland, and collecting them and taking them to Jane inside the Lucky 38, you will be rewarded with 2,000 caps. All that for a simple snow globe. The first one is found in the Good Springs Cemetery. One can also be found at the Hoover Dam Visitor Center. One can be found in the Old Mormon Fort in the western corner. If you enter inside, it'll be located upstairs on a shelf. The Jacobstown Lodge also has one sitting right there on the reception desk. You can also head to the Nellis Air Force Base. Inside of the Nellis Boomer Museum, it will be sitting there right to the right when you enter. One of the easier ones to find is going to be inside the lounge of the Lucky 38 Casino, and will be sitting on the counter behind the cash register. You can find another one in the Vault 21 Hotel, on the nightstand in Sarah's room. And the next couple ones can only be found in the DLC. You can find one in the Dead Money DLC, and this one will be located in the Salada del Sol North, located next to one of Dean's secret stashes. You also have one in Honest Hearts, which is located in the general store in the northwestern part of Zion. You also have one in Big Mountain, which is found in the X-17 Meteorological Station. And the last one is in the Lonesome Road DLC, found at the Junction 7 rest stop. So if you ever really just wanted a lot of caps, for not really doing too much or really putting yourself in too much harm's way, these snow globes are a pretty easy way to do that. Fallout New Vegas has a couple returning characters from previous Fallout games. One of them is Marcus, who was originally a companion for the Chosen One in Fallout 2.
Was part of a super mutant army. Ran a town, walked the wasteland with a tribal. Now I'm here. We were looking for a Gek to save the village of Arroyo. Eventually we did. Nuked an oil rig in the process. We went separate ways after that. I went east into the Rockies looking for other mutants like myself. Don't know what happened to my friend. I got a feeling it turned out all right in the end.
We also have Doc Henry, who was a former Enclave scientist that was living in the NCR during Fallout 2.
I assume this is about something important? You're interrupting my research. Yes, specializing in neuroscience, both human and canine. Of course, this lab is nothing compared to what I had when I was with the Enclave. Yes, but the leadership and I didn't see eye to eye, so I left. It was the right decision, since the Enclave's oil rig was destroyed not long after.
And I guess you can kind of put Rose of Sharon Cassidy on here because her father, John Cassidy, was also in Fallout 2, and he was a potential companion to the Chosen One. Putting her as a returning character might be a stretch, but I thought it was still cool to include. Arizona Killer is a rather interesting quest. If you are doing a Legion playthrough after El Tumor Brute, you will get this quest, where Caesar will have you assassinate the NCR president, Aaron Kimball. And what really makes this quest stand out, and is one of the reasons a lot of people love Fallout New Vegas, is because there are just so many ways to complete it. You could do the standard, just balls to the wall, go in and blow some shit up. You can assassinate Aaron Kimball with just a regular gun, you could go stealth, any kind of simple measure like that where you end up putting a bullet or an explosive in them. You could always just brute force it like that. But there are plenty of other ways to also complete this. When the vertibird lands on the helipad, you can plant a bomb on it. Or you can plant C4 in Jeremy Watson's helmet, and when that NCR trooper gets closer to Kimball, you can set it off.
Private First Class Jeremy Watson, on behalf of the Senate and people of the new...
If you have a high enough repair skill, you can also rig the anti-aircraft gun to explode.
But the time came and they could no longer shoulder the burden alone.
If you have a good science, you can sabotage Bear Force 1's flight computer. or you can program the anti-aircraft gun to shoot down at the vertibird. And with just the amount of ways to complete this quest for multiple different types of characters, it's just one of the reasons why this game is so beloved and awesome. I don't think it's a shock to anyone that the courier is indirectly responsible for what happened at the Divide, and that's a stretch. I really don't think the courier was responsible whatsoever, but Ulysses sure as hell thinks you are, whether the courier knows it or not. Kind of like that Thanos meme. But what had happened at the Divide was that the NCR saw an item that they had from Navarro that had markings that resembled things that were at the Divide, and they hired you, Courier 6, to take it there and see if it really did anything. And after you deliver it and you leave, the device activates and remotely detonates the missiles under the ground, causing the events at the Divide, and Ulysses is still pretty pissed off that you did your job. Whether you knew what was going to happen or not, instead of blaming other people, he blames you for something. Ulysses, man, you're so many words. You're so wrong.
You brought the Divide to life, Courier. You walked the road, brought the bear, then the bull, brought me, following your tracks. And when I saw the Divide you made, I saw a second chance, a new way of thinking. My world, no longer the East. And you brought the West in that package, destroyed it all. Nearly killed me, flesh and spirit. You destroyed something larger than the bear, greater than the bull. And even when you could have turned away, you brought it again in that machine. You destroyed a nation taking its first breath, a place that could have been my home. Now, I'll destroy yours.
Like, Ulysses, you're really just looking for a scapegoat on this one, man. Like, come on. Vault 3 is one of the vaults that you can find in the Mojave Wasteland that we talked a little bit earlier about with Motor Runner. But Vault 3 was actually one of the control vaults where there was no crazy experiments going on. Things were supposed to be pretty normal. And for decades after the Great War, that's exactly what happened. All until a water leak ended up forcing the residents to open the vault for the very first time in order to find help. And for a little while, they were going pretty well. They were trading with local communities, and things were pretty peaceful. Until they eventually caught the attention of the Fiends. And the Fiends were able to take advantage of the original vault dwellers and successfully con their way into getting inside the vault, where they would kill the inhabitants and claim the vault for themselves. And to the events of Fallout New Vegas, Vault 3 stays as a Fiend headquarters, where they live in relative safety in fear that one day, mean son of a bitch is gonna find them.
I guess it isn't a secret. Yeah, the residents of the vault are all dead. We killed them. Funny thing is, they just let us in. We didn't have to force the doors or anything. We needed someplace to put down roots. I was having trouble keeping my people out of Westside. I try to keep my people out of Westside. Apart from trying to stay on good terms with the cons who do business there, there's mean son of a bitch. That fucking mutant is more trouble to kill than to avoid. Having some place for my people to sleep reduces the chances of drifting into Westside.
Marshal Fabish!
The White Glove Society is one of the 3 tribes that Mr. House was able to conquer and take over and give control of to the 3 casinos, with the White Glove Society being in charge of the Ultralux Casino, under one condition, that they kinda stop with the whole cannibalism thing. Before the White Glove Society was civilized, they may have been a tribe full of cannibals, but thankfully that past is completely behind them. Or so we think. Multiple quests in the game will have you going to the White Glove Society, and eventually you can uncover that certain people still in the White Glove Society want to go back to the old ways and practice cannibalism. Now you can either be a total narc and rat them out and stop their plan, or you can actually help them. And similar to a lot of other quests, there are multiple ways to continue to do this. And some of them maybe involve cannibalism, like offering up your companions like Boone, Veronica, Cass, or Arcade as a substitute.
Her skin has a certain supple quality to it, doesn't it? She's kept it well. How mouth-watering.
Or finding the original target that they were going to cannibalize, Carlisle St. Clair. Or if you want them to think that they're eating people, you can always create the imitation strange meat pie. So whether you want the creepy white glove society with their very creepy mask that definitely screams we were cannibals to continue being cannibals is completely up to you, but those masks, man, I don't know if I want to trust it, but I do want one because they're pretty cool. This is talking about the bonus that Obsidian would have received if Fallout New Vegas would have gotten an 85 plus Metascore on the review website Metacritic. But unfortunately, it only reached an 84, and they were not given their payment. And it's even started a conspiracy theory that Todd Howard paid off Metacritic to give them an 84 instead of an 85, so they wouldn't have to give them the payment. There's an entire crazy conspiracy theory rabbit hole that you can go down on this, but it just seems to me that coincidentally they were just one short. Because if we do remember, Fallout New Vegas, when it came out, was a buggy mess. The big one is a wild wasteland encounter that you can come across. It's kind of going to be out in the middle of nowhere, out near the Devil's Throat and Ranger Station Bravo. And upon approaching it, you will see a giant nuke, very similar to the one that you would see in Fallout 3 in Megaton, with a display reading 9999 and getting 1 to 3 rads per second. And you also have some pretty formidable enemies with some super mutant masters right around the corner. But if you do have a high enough science, you can salvage some components from it, and you will get 150 energy cells, 50 microfusion cells, and 2 sensor modules. With this wild wasteland encounter, there really isn't too much to it, but it's still a pretty interesting one. Wolfhorn Ranch is a place that you will come across in your quest to track down Benny. Not only does it have the unique weapon, the Chopper, but it also once belonged to Ulysses. In the official Fallout New Vegas game guide, it says this about the ranch. What was once a profitable Bighorner ranch has recently been abandoned, and its owner, a man named Ulysses, is nowhere to be found. And that's not the only reference to Ulysses owning this place that we have. In the Italian, Spanish, French, and German versions of the game, the Wolfhorn Ranch is called Ulysses Camp, but in those languages. And lastly, according to Chris Avalon, the grave that is located on the hill next to the ranch is actually a reference to Ulysses being cut from the game. And this would have been the area where he would have stayed, and you would have been able to acquire him as a companion, who had sympathetic ties towards the Legion. But instead, they ended up cutting him and saving him for Lonesome Road. Fallout New Vegas has a very interesting reputation system, and once you get a high enough reputation with each faction, they will give you the keys to an elite safe house that you can use for pretty much whatever you want. The Legion one is going to be located southeast of Nipton, and it will contain a couple beds and a water fountain with some pretty notable loot. It'll have some Legion Centurion armor and a Centurion helmet, with Legion Vexillarius armor and a Vexillarius helmet, and also a sniper rifle and a chainsaw. There's also some Lucky Shades, some Legion Praetorian armor, and a Displacer glove. And you can also find 2 Stealth Boys, 2 Cat Eyes, and 2 random skill magazines. And the Legion Safe House will be restocked every 3.5 in-game days by Veteran Atticus. Now the NCR Safe House is going to be just northwest of Black Mountain. And inside that one, you will have a couple rooms. You're going to have a reloading bench, a water fountain, a bedroom, and a couple footlockers. But the more interesting aspect is going to be the NCR Ranger Combat Armor, the NCR Salvaged Power Armor, the NCR Ranger Patrol Armor, and a neat little Ranger hat and helmet. There's also the Followers of the Apocalypse Safe House, which will be just northwest of Vault 22. And inside this one, you can find a DC Journal of Internal Medicine book, an advanced radiation suit and a tri-beam laser rifle, and an all-purpose science suit and a multiblast rifle. And kind of last but not least is going to be the Brotherhood of Steel Safe House, which is going to be west-southwest of Raoul's shack. And inside of it, you will have Paladin Sato, who is in charge of the bunker and can repair any of your items up to 100%. And inside of it, some of the best goodies you're going to find is some recon armor, some T-51 power armor, some T-45 power armor, a Tesla cannon, minigun, Gatling laser, and a missile launcher. Now, of course, you also have like some of the other places like the Lucky 38, the Dino Delight Motel Room, and things like that, but the main faction safe houses are going to be the Legion, NCR, Followers, and the Brotherhood of Steel. And they always get resupplied by people, and they have a pretty decent amount of goodies. So if you get a high enough reputation, these are definitely places you're going to want to check out. One of the greatest things that you can do in Fallout New Vegas is toss General Oliver off the dam. If you are doing a Yes Man playthrough, you are confronted by the NCR, and that's when you can make this happen.
So if NCR comes at you, and it will, pray you're ready. I promise you, our situation's reversed, I'd see you hanged. What the hell? No, get away from me, you goddamn TV on wheels.
In the early builds of Fallout New Vegas, Mr. House had a much different appearance, and my god is this the thing of nightmares. I'm so glad they went with the one they did because this one is terrifying. I would not work for this man. Like the house that we have, I'll simp for Daddy House all day. This Mr. House screams, I have a litany of children's bodies under the floorboards. I don't trust this guy. Glad they did not stay with this. One of the best companions in the game, Veronica, is always seen with a hood. Even when you change her outfit, she's probably still gonna have that hood up, which makes it seem like she has some kind of complex with her hair. And this actually is confirmed when you go to the Brotherhood of Steel bunker. A certain Melissa Watkins will have some snide remark to make about Veronica's hair.
I can hardly notice that lazy eye anymore, Watkins.
Still hiding that hair of yours, Veronica.
So it seems like Veronica's just not a huge fan of the whole hairstyle she has going with her, but I don't know, I think it works. This is a reference to one of the challenges that's going to have you kill Mr. House with a 9-iron or with Neffy's golf driver. Now this itself is actually a reference to BioShock, where your character is ordered by Andrew Ryan to kill him with a golf club. And as this is going on, he repeats the phrase, a man chooses, a slave obeys.
A man chooses, a slave obeys. Kill!
The Bitter Springs Massacre is definitely a blemish on the NCR's reputation. Prior to the events of New Vegas, the Great Khans were one of the most feared raider tribes in the Mojave, but due to Mr. House kind of beefing up his own tribes, Great Khans ended up getting pushed out and sent to Bitter Springs.
They allied with Mr. House, the self-proclaimed master of New Vegas. He supported them with the resources of New Vegas. Weapons, technology, caps. They were better equipped, and we could not stand against them.
Where they would stay until the NCR arrived, and they would occasionally hit NCR caravans, towns, and camps. But things would soon start to change. After Operation Sunburst and the victory at the First Battle of Hoover Dam, the NCR set their sights on the Great Khans, with the NCR putting the 1st Recon Battalion overlooking Canyon 37, with orders to shoot anyone that emerged from the canyon on sight, and they did this to prevent the Khans from flanking their main attack force. But the NCR force was spotted way too soon, and groups of women, children, the elderly, and wounded Khans ended up coming down Canyon 37. After initial hesitation and not shooting, eventually the sharpshooters were given the order to shoot till they were out of ammo, where they would go on to gun down the civilians. And when the major in charge realized that they were gunning down women and children, he ended up becoming unresponsive, and the second in command, Captain Daughtry, ended up taking over and ordered his men to stand down. And ever since this incident, the Great Khans would hold even more resentment towards the NCR.
When the NCR came to the Mojave, we thought they would be easy pickings. We raided their caravans, their towns, their camps. They couldn't stop us. At least that's what we thought. They tracked us to Bitter Springs and surrounded us. When our children, our sick and old, fled through a nearby pass, the NCR gunned them down. It's because of that we have sworn to take revenge on the NCR. With our new allies in Caesar's Legion, we will crush them.
and even people that were involved in the massacre, such as Craig Boone, would go on to forever suffer with what they did.
Canyon 37. That's what the NCR calls the pass down there. It was the Khan's only escape, so we set up here to guard it while the main force attacked from the front. Standing orders were to shoot on sight. Main force got spotted too soon. We heard shooting. Then Khan started coming through Canyon 37 in bunches. It was all wrong, though. Women, kids, elderly, wounded started coming through too. We radioed to confirm our orders, but command didn't get what we were seeing. They told us to shoot till we were out of ammo, so that's what we did. For the Khans, any of them can be dangerous. There's a lot you can't see through a scope. Still, I often wonder the same thing. Anyway, I don't know why we're here. Thought maybe it'd help me see things better. I'd like to stay here for the night. Think some things over.
Benny wasn't actually meant to be a companion, but I think what this is referring to is Chris Avallon's want for Benny to be a companion. In an interview, he says this. In speaking on what we would have liked to tackle given the chance, Avallon also focuses on the companions. He says, if there had been time and the inclination, having Sunny Smiles, Yes Man, Benny, Volpe's, Victor, and others as potential companions would have also been great. So would have Muggy. We wanted to, but adding a full companion through the DLCs that would work in the core games would have taken more time than allowed. So it seems like the idea of Benny being a companion was floated around, but they just never had the time to actually make it anywhere near feasible. But I'm kind of glad they didn't, because Benny is just so evil. Like, he tries to stab you in the back so many ways. Like, there was a cut encounter that would have had Benny sneaking up with a stealth boy after you had freed him from the fort and basically calling you weak and saying you shouldn't have showed him mercy, but they ended up taking that out. So it seems like Benny was always meant to kind of try to stab you in the back to get what he wants, and I'm glad they never made him a companion. Grandma is talking about one of the companions that you can come across, and that is Lily. Born shortly just after the Great War, she lived a relatively simple life, getting married, having kids, and having 2 grandchildren, all within the safety of Vault 17, until the Master raided the vault in 2153. She was eventually dragged to the Mariposa military base and dipped in the FEV, and would emerge as a Nightkin. And through Lily's quest, you can learn that she is suffering from schizophrenia, and keeps hearing a voice called Leo.
Leo is a very bad man, Pumpkin. Yes, you are, Leo. Don't try to deny it. He tells me to do things, terrible things, and sometimes the medicine isn't enough to keep him quiet. Well, of course there is, dearie. How else could I hear him tell me who to chop?
And has been given antipsychotic drugs, but the drugs also make her lose her memories, and those precious memories of her grandchildren, Jimmy and Becky.
Grandma's here! Grandma's here!
Oh my goodness, look at these little angels. Becky, that dress looks so lovely. And Jimmy, oh my word, how you've grown.
I'm 4 whole feet, Grandma. Do you bring us presents, Grandma?
Well, now, I don't know. Have you been good to your mommy and daddy?
Yes.
Well then, let Grandma see what you've got.
Oh, that old thing. That's just a holotape from the last time I visited my grandkids. Such sweet little children, you know, little angels. Sometimes it's hard to remember them, so I take that old tape out from time to time and listen. It's my medicine, dearie. It keeps me calm, but it makes my memory go all fuzzy. That's why I only take my dosage every other time. That way, at least I remember their faces.
And side note, there are character models for Lily before she was a super mutant, and also for models of her grandchildren. But back to Lily. During her companion quest, you can either have her take her full dose of antipsychotics, which would get rid of this quote-unquote Leo, but would also lose her memories.
Encouraged by the courier to take her medication regularly, Lily's mind eventually attained a semblance of clarity. Her memories dulled by the pills, she cast aside the recording of her grandchildren, no longer remembering its significance.
Or she can continue taking them at half doses and still have to deal with Leo, but also get to remember her grandchildren.
Lily continued to take her medicine at half doses, and although she remembered her grandchildren, her mind remained muddled and confused. Eventually, she parted ways with the courier and traveled west, seeking the remnants of her past.
Or the worst option, just have her completely stop taking her medicine.
Encouraged by the courier to stop taking her medication altogether, Lily's instabilities grew worse with each passing day. Eventually, she became little more than a ravening beast, the kindly old grandmother subsumed beneath the rage.
I believe this is a reference to the quest How Little We Know, where you are basically tasked with building a chlorine bomb. If siding with Nero and Big Sal, you are asked to help out Clanton. And with a high enough science check, you are told to go basically steal chlorine from the Ultralux to build their bomb. And Caesar wants this, that way he can use it to attack the Strip when he attacks Hoover Dam, in order to divert some of the NCR forces. I think this is talking about one of the most hated unmarked quests in Fallout New Vegas, the Hidden Valley computer virus, where you can help Scribe Ibsen get rid of their computer virus that's been plaguing their system. And in order to do this, you have to find the virus on 3 terminals in less than 60 seconds. And if you're just playing like vanilla Fallout, you can't run. And it's so difficult, man. If you have an insanely high science skill level, you can make this a little bit easier on yourself, but it's still a huge pain in the ass running back and forth between these terminals in under 60 seconds. And when you look at it like at a grander scale, this seems very, very dumb that they have just one person doing this, you, the courier, when there are multiple people on this floor that could all help out and make this quest just so much easier. Hilario is the Legion spy that comes up to you on the Strip and informs you that Caesar would like to speak to you. And he only does this if you, quite possibly, killed Volpes and Colta. The Thorn is an area in Fallout New Vegas where you can go and do a bunch of quests for Red Lucy and eventually get some sexy time with her. And that's really all you need to go there for, is mainly for that. But there was also a piece of cut content there that would have had you turning off the power to the cages in Red Lucy's chamber. And this would have started a quest where all the creatures were released and wreak havoc in the Thorn and in Westside. And this would have been a really cool quest, especially if you could have like somehow accidentally turned off the power to the cages and then like you have to deal with the consequences of your action. I feel like that would have been a pretty cool idea, but unfortunately, like a lot of cool things in Fallout New Vegas, it was cut. Upon talking to Cass, eventually you can get to this dialogue where she mentions the man, the myth, the legend himself, Long Dick Johnson.
NCR's my country, and I support it. Anyone who says otherwise, I'll feed them my knee. I know which side of the firing line I'm on in the Mojave, just so you know. Yeah, there is. I'm not some blind, flag-saluting, do-as-they-will NCR lover. They're family. But let me tell you what family means. You ever had a brother? Some dumbass younger brother, say, who knocked up the pastor's daughter, can't hold a job, and is home away as a jail cell? That's NCR. Their compass is spinning all the time. They try to put their stake in everything they see. Nobody's dick's that long. Not even Long Dick Johnson, and he had a fucking long dick. Thus the name.
This is talking about a bunch of notes that can be found at Matthew's Animal Husbandry Farm. The first note reads, "Dear Diary, Mom and Dad went to the NCR camp nearby to trade for supplies, but they haven't come back yet. I hope nothing bad has happened to them." Page 2. "Dear Diary, I took a chance today and left the animals alone to go look for Mom and Dad. I found them in that camp. They had become horrible feral ghouls. I didn't know what to do. They came at me so fast. Oh God, what have I done?" Page 3. Dear Diary, I hate being all alone. I want my mom and dad back, but I can't have them back because I killed them. I didn't want to kill them, but I had to kill them. Otherwise, they would have eaten me. I hope the animals don't eat me. Can animals become ghouls? And the last and final page. Dear Diary, the animals, they are evil. They tried to eat me in my sleep. They want the farm for themselves. Now that mom and dad are gone, they want the farm for themselves. They are plotting against me, plotting to eat me. They are becoming ghouls like my parents, and they want to eat me like my parents did. Too many of them to kill them all. I know what I'll do. I'll burn the house down around me. Then the animals can't eat me because there will be nothing left for them to eat. And we really never get an idea of how old this person is. The skeleton that we can find seems to indicate that they were probably an adult. But even if they were a teenager, it's still sad to think about that someone lost their parents and then goes on to completely lose their sanity and think that everything around them is trying to eat them. Now this one isn't technically cut content from Fallout New Vegas, but it's close enough that I'm gonna allow it. The Legion Chariot was actually just concept art for the original Fallout 3. Not the one that you're familiar with, but Fallout 3 codenamed Van Buren. And Fallout New Vegas actually ended up taking a lot from that cut game and implementing it into its own. So it's safe to say that maybe at one point in time, the idea of actually having motorized Legion Chariots may have got tossed around in New Vegas. Of course, we never got it because we really don't have any working vehicles in New Vegas. But I honestly consider this canon because it would make a lot of sense for the Legion to have at least some sort of mechanical vehicles, some way of faster transportation than just walking. And I mean, come on, the design of it looks pretty freaking awesome. Like it has that old school historic chariot feel with like a 1950s car. That's just pretty freaking awesome. The Fallout New Vegas coasters were actually a pre-order bonus for Fallout New Vegas at Kmart of all places. With a $5 pre-order payment, you would have received 4 of these coasters. And the fact that I'm just now learning about these right now is very upsetting to me because I would love to have these. Looking on eBay, they run about $50 if you want all of them. Which, to me, if you're a huge fan of Fallout New Vegas, not a bad deal whatsoever. I think this one is actually a piece of Fallout New Vegas like community lore because a lot of people seem to think that lake lurks are just mutated snapping turtles. And apparently the reason for this is because at one point in time, the wiki, the Fallout New Vegas wiki, claimed that they were, but didn't have any source, and everyone just read it on the wiki and started to believe it. And as some people have pointed out, this makes absolutely no sense because snapping turtles don't even live in that area, so they probably didn't evolve from that. But one thing that we do know for sure is that lake lurks look an awful lot like the Gill Man from the 1954 horror movie Creature from the Black Lagoon. If you're doing any kind of weapons build, and Stay Back is definitely a perk that you're going to want to have. It's really, really good. It's going to require a level 10 and a gun skill of 70 to acquire. And upon taking this perk, you will get a 10% chance to inflict a knockback effect on enemies, but only when you're using shotguns. And at first, if you're thinking of like a single shotgun or like a sawed-off shotgun, it doesn't sound too OP because you're constantly reloading. But imagine having this perk with the Riot Shotgun. You have a 10% chance to not only knock back the enemies, but also kind of stun them a little bit as they get up. And with the Riot Shotgun, you pretty much don't give your enemies a chance to do anything. They're gonna live the rest of their life on the floor until you eventually take them out. So, and Stay Back, definitely an OP perk. One of the goats, you gotta get it. Did you know that there is actually a ghoul version of Veracruz? Now, before you get all excited and think that this cut content was originally gonna have Veracruz be a ghoul, that was not the case. I've seen 2 different reasons for this ghoul. 1, it was just a placeholder that they were using to test a bunch of things out, and 2, that they originally wanted this to be her corpse, but ended up going with just the skeleton instead. So as fun as it is to imagine Veracruz actually being alive in the Sierra Madre, forever trapped in there as a ghoul, actually that's not fun at all, that sounds terrifying. That was actually never going to be the case, unfortunately. And the closest thing you'll get to Veracruz is her hologram at the fountain, or the final message you receive after beating the DLC.
Wait a moment. Before you go, we hope you've enjoyed your stay. Farewells can be a time of sadness. Letting go, difficult.
As a guest of the Sierra Madre, you know that truth more than anyone. Frederick Sinclair believed one's life could be made anew every day, that fortunes were more than the wealth in your hands. Love, life, family, those to care for, and those who will care for you. To those who know these joys, the Sierra Madre holds little they don't already have. Out in the world, beyond these walls, that is your chance to begin again. I hope you'll return in happier times. Until then, the Sierra Madre and I will hold you in our hearts.
Did you know that there's an item in Fallout New Vegas called Evil Gnome, which can be found in the Fire Root Cavern? And if you're not really paying too much attention, you might be able to miss it because it's going to be surrounded by plants and is kind of hard to see. But this evil gnome actually doesn't have any curses placed on it, and it's not going to bring you bad luck or anything, or it's not going to wake you up in the middle of the night and kill you. It is simply just a reference to one of the developers, Scott Everts. And we know this because they look very similar, and also the item's editor ID is called Scott E. Gnome. Now, I'm not sure if this super mutant was technically going to be a prostitute at Gomorrah, but it's entirely possible. Yes, there was a cut super mutant named Angel that seems like it would have been placed somewhere in Gomorrah, or at least near it. And other than that, we really don't know too much information about it. There are plenty of mods out there that actually add this in, but from everything that I could see, we really don't have any concrete evidence as to what Angel's purpose would have been. Whether it was going to be a super mutant prostitute, or just some hired muscle, that we may never know unless, someone actually goes and asks a developer. I think one aspect of Fallout New Vegas that just really never gets talked about or even used has to be the Mojave Express, which is just a bunch of drop boxes that you can use to transfer items. And in order to use them, you have to at least have activated 2 of them. And they cost literally nothing to use and can move thousands of pounds worth of items. And there are 5 locations. Number 1 at Good Springs on the porch right outside the general store. Number 2 in Prim inside of Nash's residence. Number 3 in Novak inside the lobby of the Dino Delight Motel. Number 4 in Freeside right outside of the Old Mormon Fort. And lastly on the New Vegas Strip inside of the Las Vegas Boulevard Station. So the actual purpose of this is literally just to move stuff. Like if you're ever over encumbered and you're near one of these, this would be a huge help. I think if they would have put more around the map instead of just 5 of them, it might have been a little bit more useful, and I think a lot more people would have probably used it, but I know that I never really have this problem too much, so I just never use it. This is technically true. You can beat the game by literally trying to kill everybody, and also by not hurting a soul. Now you might be thinking, how can you beat the game when you definitely have to kill people? Well, there are some ways around that. From all the people that I've seen do it, it all kind of comes down to running away when you get put into a fight and never actually shooting back, or letting your companions do the dirty work so that way you can still go up to heaven. And you might be wondering, well, what ending would you pick? Of course, the Yes Man ending. You never have to kill House. You just have to open them up, and nature will do the rest. And if you wanted to kill everyone, you would still also do the Yes Man ending. And this one, surprise, surprise, just has you killing everybody. Pretty simple and self-explanatory. So yeah, you can beat Fallout New Vegas by being a total pacifist and just running away from every fight you come across and let your allies do all your dirty work, or you can be a complete psychopath and kill everyone. This should actually just be titled The Courier Can Have a Child, because it's not implied that he does, it's implied that he might. If you have the Lady Killer perk on your courier, and you talk to the Lonesome Drifter, eventually you will get this dialogue option.
Well, I was born in a little town out Montana way. Me and Ma didn't have much, ever since my pa up and left. No, sir. I'm 28. Why?
So it's entirely plausible that a Lady Killer courier has a 17-year-old child out there somewhere in the waste. If you've ever been around an NCR camp, you may eventually notice that a lot of the veteran rangers are actually ghouls. And when you come to think about it, it does make a lot of sense actually. Ghouls live longer, so they're gonna have way more experience. And quite possibly, a lot of these veteran rangers could actually have been a part of the original Desert Rangers. Or quite possibly, a lot of these ghouls could have been pre-war military, and then after the bombs eventually turned ghouls and decided to use all of their pre-war training to their advantage. If there's one thing we do know, it's that the veteran rangers are the best of the best and some of the most feared people in the Mojave. So it's safe to assume that they're also going to be the most skilled. And if you live for long enough, like a ghoul would, you'll probably have plenty of time to practice and get your shit together. This is talking about the NCR Fiends War, which started in 2253. The conflict began when the NCR president, Wendell Peterson, ordered the NCR into the Mojave, marking the beginning of this war. And although the NCR entered the Mojave with several battalions, they were never quite able to completely stomp out the Fiends, with the Fiends using guerrilla tactics and just being high out of their minds, and eventually becoming more and more organized. And with the NCR's lack of supplies and personnel, they were just never able to fully do anything about it. And the Fiends would remain a constant thorn in the side of the NCR.
As in chem fiends. Biggest gang of raiders I've ever seen. Nothing like addiction to swell your numbers. Psychotic and completely unpredictable. They set up shop in Vault 3 to the west. Every day they attack our positions and my men repel them. But every day there's more of them and less of us. I sent one of my rangers after their leader to try and destabilize them. He didn't return.
And depending on your actions throughout the game, the Fiends can either rise in power or get completely annihilated.
Fiends overran Camp McCarran during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. In the anarchic months that followed, the Fiends asserted dominance over Outer Vegas. The Fiends attacked Camp McCarran during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, but the NCR repulsed the attack with minimal losses. When Mr. House asserted control over Outer Vegas, his Securitrons eradicated the remaining Fiends entirely. The Fiends attacked Camp McCarran during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam and suffered heavy losses. Caesar, unimpressed with their performance and their dependence on chems, had them exterminated. Though weakened, the Fiends attacked McCarran during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. NCR repulsed the attack with minimal losses and, in the following days, destroyed the remaining Fiend leaders, breaking their power forever.
This is one of the more funnier whoopsies in Vault New Vegas that I absolutely love. Eventually, through some dialogue options with Cass, you can get this option.
Took to it like a fish to water. Well, if you know what a fish is. It's this slimy, scaled thing, like a lake lurk, except no legs. Well, most times. They're like birds, except they stay underwater. Anyway, I've seen pictures. One guy even had one above his bar in Reading, except it was made of pre-war plastic. He used to say it could sing, but I figured he was on a jet rush.
And this implies that the courier has either never seen a fish, doesn't know what a fish is, and has absolutely no idea what she is talking about. But what's funny is you can find plenty of fish throughout the Mojave, especially in Lake Mead. Like fish aren't some mystical creature that we've never seen, there are plenty around the Mojave. So either the courier has just never bothered to go near any body of water, or has just been lucky enough to just never come across a fish in his entire life, or that bullet did a little bit more damage than we thought. Through Old World Blues, you're really never meant to understand what Dr. 8 is saying. I mean, there is the little quest where your character can actually piece together what he's saying, but you as a person never actually get to know what exactly he is saying. But luckily, in the script for the game, there actually was a couple notes next to some of his dialogue. So for instance, when he says this, he is saying, "Who am I? I am Dr. 8, audio engineer at this facility." And when he says this, he is saying, "I apologize for my emotional display, but it is a serious matter that you have brought up." And my personal favorite, when he does this, he is saying, a little embarrassed about this, but yes, I creamed hard into your gun. We also got this. which is, I couldn't possibly expect you to understand that, and last but not least, you need to hurry. Now, I don't know if those are like exact translations for this complete gibberish, but it's kind of what they wanted him to convey. Especially the part about him creaming hard into your gun. Lonesome Road Eddie is very interesting. You never really understand what he's saying, but if you turn on subtitles, you can kinda get the general gist of what he's saying, such as sneaky beeping, happy beeping, confirmatory beeping, angry beeping, scared beeping, determined beeping, and expository beeping. So you don't really exactly get to know what he says, but you can get the general gist. I just love how Easy Pete has become just such a huge meme in the Fallout New Vegas community. It's just so weird and it's hilarious. I love it. But of course, there is a mod called Difficult Pete, which makes Easy Pete look like this. And here is the official mod description. He has 10k health and throws nuka grenades that look like dynamite, and he has really OP melee attacks, and he looks like a Chad now. And in case you were wondering, this mod has over 5,000 downloads and 70,000 views. You gotta love the community, man. I love stuff like this. It's hilarious. Mojave Rar, I think, is talking about a series of videos by Dr. Bosch, in which he gets outside of the map and explores the unknown. But as he does, things get more mysterious and creepy as he goes along. Think of like Fallout New Vegas, but in the back rooms or something. It's very, very weird and creepy. There's no jump scares or anything, but the mood and the tone that's set is definitely offsetting, to say the least. Meat of Champions is a special perk that you can get in Fallout New Vegas, with the in-game description as such. The essence of champions flows through your veins. When you cannibalize corpses, you temporarily gain Caesar's intelligence, Mr. House's luck, the King's charisma, and President Kimball's strength. And just by going off that description, I'm assuming you kinda get where this is going. In order to get this perk, you must first have the cannibal perk. And after you do that, you must consume the corpses of Caesar, Mr. House, the King, and President Kimball. And upon doing so, you will be given the special perk Meat of Champions, where you will get a temporary +1 to luck, intelligence, charisma, and strength for 60 seconds after eating any human corpse. I don't think anybody actually knows how to play Caravan, and if they do, they're probably lying. Well, that's kind of a stretch. But majority of Fallout players probably have no idea how to properly, or even what really Caravan is. And unless you actually take some time out of your day to go spend like 20 minutes watching YouTube videos to learn how to play, you might never understand what's going on. But luckily for you, there are plenty of YouTube videos out there that break it down and actually explain how to play Caravan. But I can do my best to summarize it up for you really quick to see if it interests you. So essentially, you're going to build a deck of cards, very similar like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Or something. You build your deck, and you're going to be having 3 one-on-one battles with your opponent. And your goal for each one of these battles is to add up all your cards to either be between 21 to 26. And whoever's battle has the higher number ends up winning, and it's a best 2 out of 3. And for each battle, once you place down your first card, you can either go higher or lower. So if you place down a 10, the next one would have to be 9, 8, 7, and so on. And each face card has a different effect. So for example, the Jacks, when placed on a numbered card, it removes that card from the stack, and any other cards attached to it. The Queen can reverse the directions of the numbers in that stack. So if they were going from high to low, now they're going from low to high. And the King doubles the value of any numbered card. So if you think of it more like in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! Meets playing cards, instead of just like a playing card game, it's a little bit easier to actually understand. Talking to many great cons and ex-great cons, you can learn of the initiation ritual, which essentially is where they just all jump you and beat the crap out of you, and if you can survive it out, you become a great con and get to pick your name.
Everybody has to do it. Well, everybody who wants to be a con anyways. They toss you into the ring there and beat on you for a solid minute. If you survive, you're in.
You're not fully grown till you've taken a beat down. Everybody gathers around and hits you till you're damn near dead. After that, if you haven't begged for mercy, you get to choose a new name. One you'll use for the rest of your life. When NCR slaughtered the cons at Bitter Springs, I hadn't got my beat down yet. I was still too young. The way I see it, Bitter Springs was my beat down. So afterward, I gave myself a name. It's all I got from the cons. It's all I ever wanted.
But what is probably lesser known about this is there is a piece of cut content that would have had you go through the Great Con initiation, and would have had you get in the ring and pretty much get jumped by a bunch of Great Cons. And if you made it through, congrats, now you're a Great Con. Mojave House is an unmarked location in the northern part of the Mojave, and upon entering the house, you may notice that it's kinda strange. There's just a bunch of maize growing in here for whatever reason. But upon further exploration of the house, you can learn that this was actually a bootlegging house. They made moonshine here, hence the maze and the indoor setup to make moonshine. And you can even find a bottle of moonshine on the table in front of the still. And what's funny is in the official game guide, it even says this about the Mojave House. On the porch is a fridge with beer, and a mailbox to check before you pry open either door and search inside. Or you'll find a hidden maze growing operation, complete with hydroponic lighting. There's drink in the interior fridge too. Avenge Perump is a piece of cut content. It originally would have been some graffiti that was sprayed upon the walls. And the fact that it says Avenge Perump possibly means that something terrible actually had happened there. And if you were wondering if this is a real place, it very much is. Payrump, I keep hearing people pronounce it Payrump, so that's what I'm gonna say, is a real city that's located about an hour outside of New Vegas, or Las Vegas, real world Las Vegas. If you look at it on the map, it's actually just on the other side of Mount Charleston, aka Jacobstown, so it's really not too far away from what we would have seen in Fallout. And the fact that it says Avenge means something terrible went down there. Whether it was the NCR being the NCR, the Legion ransacking the town, it being overrun by raiders, that we'll never know because they never expanded on it. But I think this little town would have actually been a pretty interesting location to visit in the game. This is a reference to Testicles, the Debug Centurion, who is a test cell character, and if he looks familiar, that's because he probably should. This is also the same character for Bill the Tax Collector and Ron the Narrator. There really isn't much to this one, other than the fact that it's just a pretty sick own on Ulysses. If you are playing as a female courier and you align yourself with a Legion, you can eventually get this dialogue option in Lonesome Road.
There's your signal. Faint, but there. A woman in Kaiser's service. Looks like a bear has had its victory after all. Her tales of you walking the Mojave. Casting off your disguise, yet you carried that chip, determined to take it to Vegas. Not Kaiser. You and that chip deserve each other. 29 fewer coins than other traders have carried. By history's mark. It's not Legion. The Legion I know. But they change. Even in small ways as they march west. With every tribe they break. But yes, last I heard, you needed a weapon between your legs to carry one for Kaiser. What do you... I see the way of it. Have fight in you at least. Save it for the road ahead.
There is a cut Old World Blues ending that actually has you siding with the think tank. We do have the ending slide and the intended narration.
In the decades following the Battle of Hoover Dam, the Big Empty remained a desolate stretch of wasteland where few travelers dared venture. In time, however, a strange blue field began to grow, slowly spreading across the big empty. Lightning blue fields of force danced on the horizon like electrical storms. People whispered of floating spheres, flickering like a rainbow of torches in the desert like old world wisps. Then communities began to vanish. Good Springs was crushed beneath bizarre hexcrete blocks that stacked to the sky. The inhabitants of Prim winked out, flesh fried into X-ray silhouettes, their arms raised in surrender. A satellite fell on Jacobstown, beaming a kaleidoscope of bright blue equations into the deranged Nightkin minds, driving some berserk, paralyzing others. Black Mountain Radio began broadcasting a strange staccato static as hordes of giant man-eating battle Brahmin began to swarm from its peak. Camp Searchlight became a garden of giant carnivorous plants. And the Colorado River shrugged one day, drowning several communities as its contours adjusted themselves. The Gomorrah became home to a particularly virulent vegetation-based STD that grew like a fungus within victims' genitalia until their bodies burst open like pods. The Legion East were systematically brain-scrubbed and rebuilt so that all the inhabitants believed they were in ancient Rome, on the moon. And the human cattle of NCR were re-educated into believing they existed in perpetuity in a nationwide version of someplace called Tranquility Lane. In the end, no one was sure who had cracked the dome of the Big Empty, although it was clear someone had been playing with forces they did not understand. Throughout all this, the think tank was industrious, confident these experiments were all for the best, the results of the data they obtained incredible. They marveled that all of this had been waiting for them to come along and experiment since the war. Humanity certainly was persistent, no matter what experiments, nuclear holocaust or otherwise, it inflicted on itself.
And I really hate that this was cut, because in Dead Money, you do have the option to join Father Elijah if you are hated by the NCR. So it would have been pretty cool to join the think tank and kind of just experiment all over the world. One of the best characters in the game has to be Fantastic. Not only is he one of the smartest men I've ever come across.
It was easy, man. They were going door to door asking if anyone knew any scientists. I said look no further. They asked me if I knew anything about power plants. I said as much as anyone I had ever met. They asked me how well I understood theoretical physics. I said I had a theoretical degree in physics. They said welcome aboard.
But he also has to be one of the most charismatic, because upon doing a Legion playthrough, if you take out all of the NCR at Helios 1, you would expect not to see anyone that was working there. Well, of course, if anybody was going to survive and join the Legion, it would be Fantastic.
Hey man, when in Rome. Man, I don't even know. It's crazy. Shh. You feel that? That's the winds of change, baby, and Fantastic's riding them with his magical angel wings. They saw the shit I did for the NCR, how I carried them on my back, brought the fire to the heathens. I wasn't gonna help them, but they begged. Well, somebody begged. Couldn't say who for sure. It's all a blur, you know? Chems, man. What a trip. I'm working on some top secret shit I can't even tell you about. It's so mind-blowing. But here's a little taste. You know how you can only collect sunlight during the day? Well, what if you could make it daytime all the time? Crazy, right? Or is it? I'm gonna find somebody smart and ask him that question, see what he says. It'll be fucking intense. Adios, amigo.
Upon heading to the Sunset Sarsaparilla headquarters, you can run into Festus. And upon learning more about Sunset Sarsaparilla, Festus will tell you not to worry about that silly old advisory. But if you keep pressing him about it, he will eventually cave and tell you about it.
Lastly, did you hear about the health advisory that aired on Channel 6 recently? Say, silly old advisory. I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Could you repeat it? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Could you repeat it? While Sunset Sarsaparilla is perfectly safe, a recent independent study, whose validity is currently being challenged, revealed the following. Excessive ingestion of occasional numbness, anxiety, loss of visual acuity, dizziness, occasional nosebleeds, joint inflammation, tooth decay, sore throat, bronchitis, organ rupture, and halitosis. Note that you'd have to drink a heap of Sunset sarsaparilla to match the quantities used in the study. How much, you ask? A lot. A whole hell of a lot. In fact, you'd have to get full as a tick on Sunset sarsaparilla to even come close. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, partner, and keep drinking Sunset sarsaparilla.
Upon exiting the Lucky 38, you can get approached by a Followers of the Apocalypse member, Emily Ortal, who totally banged Benny. Just throwing that out there. But she will give you a quest, The Moon Comes Over the Tower, in which she asks you to bug the Lucky 38. But what's interesting about this quest is you can just rat her out right away. You can go straight to House, and he pretty much just shrugs it off and says, yeah, do it anyway, it won't matter, get your bag.
One of the followers of the apocalypse, I'm sure. They're curious about me. Good luck planting a surveillance device here in the Lucky 38 without my knowing about it.
One complaint that a lot of people have about Dead Money is that all of their weapons get taken away, and they pretty much start with nothing. But you would probably kick yourself if I told you that you can actually start with a caravan shotgun and some ammo. It will be located on your way to the police station to get Dog/God right next to one of Dean's secret stashes. In New Vegas, you can find the miscellaneous item, a finger, and it's located in Gibson's shack. But what's really weird about it is it's pinned to the wall by a machete hanging over a skeleton. So why on earth would Old Lady Gibson have this just chilling in her shack? And this has actually led a lot of people to believe that the Old Lady Gibson that we run into is not the actual Old Lady Gibson. The theory goes that the one we find in-game is actually a crazed imposter, and she murdered the original Old Lady Gibson and just took up residence in her place, and hid the body in the shack. Now, as fun as this conspiracy theory actually is, it's more than likely not true. But there is another conspiracy theory that I've also seen, that this was her husband. So maybe her husband was not a very nice guy and she murdered him and decided for some reason to stick his finger on the wall with a machete. I don't know. Something about this whole Old Lady Gibson thing gives me the creeps, and I don't really trust her. Now, believe it or not, this is actually not a piece of cut content and is something you can actually do in the game. If you have completed the quest We Are Legion in Nelson, and or at least liked by the Great Khans, Papa Khan will offer you the position as his next heir.
I understand you dealt the NCR a crushing defeat at Forlorn Hope. I hope that trend continues. That's why I've made a decision. I'm naming you my heir. When I die, leadership of the Great Khans will pass to you. You don't have to say anything. I am Papa Khan, and I have spoken. When I'm gone, you will lead the tribe.
And then you can perform a little bit of assassination, as some people would call it, to kill Papa Khan and become the next leader of the Khans, where you can pretty much decide without any opposition on what the Khans should do, whether they fight for the Legion, fight for the NCR, aid the Courier by attacking both sides, or tell Regis to get the hell out of the Mojave. And I'm ashamed to admit this, but upon researching for this video, this was the first time I ever knew you could become the leader of the Great Khans, and I'm ashamed of that. Upon talking to Veronica, you can learn that one of the things she wants most in the world is a dress.
I want a dress. Yeah, a good one. Something elegant and classy, you know? But still stylish. Something that's eye-catching and sexy, but also says, don't fuck with me. I keep hoping I'll come across some old-world designer gown when I'm scavenging, but it never happens. Maybe I should move back to California. Hey, you try getting a date wearing scribe robes. Might as well be wearing sweatpants. I just like them, you know? They make you feel like a woman. Those ladies before the war, they knew what they were doing.
And this actually is an unmarked quest called You Make Me Feel Like a Woman, where all you have to do is give Veronica a dress. You can head to the Ultralux and pick up a white glove society attire, or really any formal wear.
For me? Do you mean it? No, it's too much. Well, okay, but it's too much. Oh, it's perfect. Thank you, thank you.
Or if you really want to get sadistic with it, you could give her Veraki's dress.
Aw, you shouldn't have. It's just my taste. Thank you.
But upon giving her the dress, which she probably won't wear because of scripting issues, she will be elated with joy and teach you the special unarmed move, the Scribe Counter.
I wish I had something to give you. Wait, what about punching? That's the gift that keeps on giving. I could work on your punching with you, if you like. Show you how to counter like a scribe. All right, put him up. Let's see what you got. Pretty addictive, right? You do it once, it just makes you want to do it more.
Gord is a beer bootlegger who you can come across at the location Brewer's Beer Bootlegging. And majority of the time you come across him, he's probably dead because gas doors are deadly. And there actually is some cut audio where the drunks in Freeside will ask if anyone has seen Gord lately. But Gord is also a part of the unmarked quest, Strategic Nuclear Moose, where all you have to do is head to the location Brewer's Beer Bootlegging and get inside of the cellar. And upon getting in the cellar, you can find a key under the Big Book of Science that will open up the hard lock gun cabinet, just outside of the room with the sign reading Strategic Nuclear Moose, and God said, let them have beer. This one brought up a lot of old memories from the first time I ever played this game, because that's probably the only time you would ever go here. Yes, the Tops does have an outdoor pool section. It's actually just through the restaurant. And that's probably the reason a lot of people have never even discovered the pool, because there's really nothing that sends you over here. But upon coming out here, it's actually a really nice little area. And I really wish they would have done more with this area, put more things to do, people to talk to, or really anything in here, because it's very peaceful, and it really is different from everything else you've seen in the Wasteland. Everyone probably knows how to get to the boomers. You gotta duck, dodge, dip, dive, and dodge a bunch of artillery shells, and eventually make your way to the gate. But what if I told you there was another way to get inside the Nellis Air Force Base? Just southeast of Raoul's shack, you can come across the unmarked location, Train Tunnel, where if you have a maxed out lockpicking skill, you can enter. And upon making your way through, it will exit just south of Nellis. So if you don't really feel like trying to dodge artillery, you can always just max out your lockpick and take a detour to the boomers. In Freeside, you can find a slave collar on the body of a corpse, but there's more to this than meets the eye. It's actually a part of Veronica's quest, I Could Make You Care, where you can learn a little bit of backstory about who this man was and why he was here. This guy was Elijah's slave, who was sent to purchase the Euclid Seafinder, and after asking about some place that could block radio signals, was pointed to this concrete building, and it would be safe to assume that it didn't go too well for him.
Wow, I wish I had more of them. All this interest to be my biggest seller. I sold it to a man not too long ago. Real twitchy, nervous sort of guy. Kind of seemed like he was wigging out about something. Had a funny collar on. I wanted to ask him about it, but I figured maybe I'd regret asking. People are weird around here. Well, it was metal and kind of thick. At first I thought he'd come from Gomorrah, but they're more into leather there. Didn't look comfortable. He kept reaching up like he was gonna itch it, but he always stopped himself. No, but I know where he was going. He asked me if I knew of any place where he could hide out for a while. Wanted somewhere with concrete walls. Something about airwaves. I forget. But I guess he spent all his money on the rangefinder because he said it had to be somewhere free to stay. I said I didn't know about anything like that around here, but if you wanted to live for free, a lot of people do that in Freeside. I know there's a concrete building there across from Mick and Ralph's. No ceiling, but I think it still counts. Went up there one time to try and, meet my neighbors in the biz. But, I don't think they took me very seriously. Oh, he was pretty average, I'd say. Average height, average age, dark hair, beard of some kind.
I don't like the sound of this. Hope that color isn't what I think it is. What did you do, Elijah?
This is talking about a location that majority of people have probably never even heard of, and that's called the Lake Mead Cave. Take a wild guess where that's located. Yes, it's going to be in Lake Mead and underwater, so you're probably going to need the rebreather, which you can get from the boomers during the quest Volare. But upon entering the cave, you can find a bunch of random goodies. You can find a couple ammunition crates, a couple first aid boxes, and you can find tons of suitcases with money and poker chips. And you can even find pieces of a car, which would hint that at some point someone had drove their car into Lake Mead and it ended up here, where all of the people that were in it and all of their money and poker chips ended up dying. It's a pretty decent location if you have the rebreather. All of the pre-war money can add up to a pretty decent amount of caps, so it's not a complete and total loss. There are plenty of Nightkin that you can come across in the Mojave, but did you know about the Psychic Nightkin that you can find in the Black Rock Cave? This is a little buggy, and from what I've seen, it seems like all Nightkin are capable of having this dialogue, but it's blocked, except for these guys, under very specific conditions. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that these Nightkin were intended to be psychic and have special visions, which they say they get from their head voices. But in order to actually hear what these guys are saying, or have a chance to, you want to do two things. One, complete the quest Crazy 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 by repairing Rhonda at Black Mountain. And two, complete the quest Come Fly With Me by having the Nightkin peacefully leave the Repcon site. And if you can do both of those things, you might hear some future being told to you by some Nightkin.
Head voices no smelly ghoul. He old and good with guns. Head voices say smart man, also metal man. Don't like metal men. Head voices say quiet man knows more than he says about horns. Head voices say they knew Flower Girl's father. Funny robot make blinky sounds. Head voices speak of doggy with squishy brain. Head voices say someone close, someone like us. Book Girl has hard decision to make.
One location that you've probably never been to or never even heard of is going to be the unmarked location Hell's Motel, which is located just southwest of Prim. And upon approaching it, you're going to realize that it's irradiated to all hell. But after you fight your way through radiation and a bunch of ghouls, you can get inside, where you will find a dead ghoul called Dr. Rodson, and also his crazed Mr. Handy. And upon exploring the rest of the house, you can find a bunch of irradiated food, some duct tape, but most importantly, you can find a Sunset Sarsaparilla Star bottle cap. So it would seem like at some point, this Dr. Rodson ended up making this place his home. Him being a ghoul makes him unaffected by radiation, so it would make a perfect place for him to live comfortably. But maybe at some point in time, his Mr. Handy ended up going haywire and taking him out. So maybe the home that he built that he thought was safe from outsiders was actually not safe from what was inside. That is going to be the end of this video. Did you guys learn something new? And if you did, what was the craziest thing that you learned? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this one, or anything else on my channel. That's all I got for you guys. Leave.